They told me a couple of years ago, if they had a quarterback, this is a Super Bowl caliber team.
Aaron Rodgers is a bad man. Let's not forget that. You got a number two. You got a number two receiver with Mike Williams now. A viable number two to Garrett Wilson being your number one option, okay? You improve. You got 3 new offensive line starters. You got a defense that was ranked 3rd, 12th in scoring defense, despite having the 2nd worst offense in the entire National Football League. I would pick the Jets to win the AFC East this year. I really would.
You know, you guys, I'm just going to go ahead and jump straight into the New York Jets at this point because this team, man, is putting together one of the best off seasons that I've ever seen. And because of that, they look like one of the scariest teams in the NFL. Not only have they added a ton to the offense to help out Aaron Rodgers, but they've also added even more to their defense that was already an elite unit, which means they're going to be even better. I love how they look as a complete team right now with everything they've built out. And if I was a different NFL franchise, I'm going to tell you right now, I would be extremely worried about what the New York Jets are cooking up. But before we get into why I believe that, if you like New York Jets content just like this, make sure to go down and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any Jets videos for the remainder of this offseason. Okay, so to get back on topic with the New York Jets, this team, of course, is coming off a season where they finished 7-10, which was pretty disappointing considering everyone was super hyped up on what this team was going to accomplish with Aaron Rodgers. But of course, Aaron Rodgers went down in game 1 of the season, and that pretty much ran the Jets off the rails and really didn't give them any chance to be anything great because we all know Zach Wilson just isn't that guy. So while yes, they didn't make the playoffs and the season was a disappointment, I think the fact that they were still able to win 7 games shows how talented this roster truly is, even when they don't have a capable quarterback. They would have easily made the playoffs last year if Aaron Rodgers would have stayed healthy, but it still might have been a little bit of a stretch to say they would go to the Super Bowl. But now with everything they've added this offseason, I think this team is one of my top Super Bowl picks. To start with what they were able to do in the offense, they came out in free agency firing by firstly going out and signing that guy Mike Williams. Mike Williams is a guy that, if you don't know, is one of the most talented receivers in the NFL as long as he can stay healthy. The only reason you don't hear about him a ton is because he's been dealing with a lot of injuries lately, but if this guy can stay healthy, he is going to have a huge impact on this team. He's one of those big receivers that you can literally just throw the ball up to, and he's going to find a way to come down with it the majority of the time, which is something that every single offense needs if they want to be an elite offense. Now, even though receiver was a weakness, I don't think it was their biggest weakness. I think their biggest weakness coming into this offseason was the offensive line, and man, oh man, did they find a way to address that. They firstly went out and signed Hall of Fame tackle Tyrone Smith to a 1-year deal, and while yes, I know this guy has some injury concerns, when he's healthy, like he was for the majority of last season, he is one of the best tackles in football, and he is going to make sure that Aaron Rodgers is protected. Now, on top of that, they also went out and made a trade for Morgan Moses to fill in that other tackle spot to help protect Rodgers even more. Morgan Moses is another guy that's proven himself to be one of the best tackles in the NFL, and he is coming off another great season, so I expect that to stay the same in this upcoming season. With both Tyrone Smith and Morgan Moses on the roster, it makes the Jets have one of, if not the very best tackle duo in the league, and I can't imagine what Aaron Rodgers is going to be able to do behind that. Not to mention, they also went out and signed John Simpson to give themselves some more interior help, which makes this offensive line even better, especially when you consider you have Joe Tippmann going into year 2, who's only going to get better, and you can move Elijah Vera Tucker into guard, and I think that'll work out good as well, which gives you an overall really talented offensive line. And what's crazy about all of this is that's not even mentioning the fact that in the draft with their first round pick at pick 11, they were able to trade down and still get that guy Olu Fashanu out of Penn State. A lot of people thought the Jets were going to go out and take Brock Bowers, and while I don't think that would have been a bad pick, I also don't hate this pick at all either, especially considering that Tyrone Smith has a lot of injury concerns. I do think Tyrone Smith is going to be able to play the majority of the season, but when he does miss those few games that he misses every year, Olu is the perfect guy to throw in there to come in and play really good tackle to fill in his spot. And on top of that, for the entirety of the time that he's not playing, he's going to be learning from a guy like Tyrone Smith, which is exactly what you want a young, talented tackle like Olu to be doing, because after he gets mentored, he's probably going to turn into a great tackle just like him. Now, when it comes to the draft, they didn't just stop there. They also went out and drafted another receiver in the 3rd round of the draft, which was an absolute steal in my opinion, considering they got Malachi Corley out of Western Kentucky. Malachi Corley is one of the best receivers in this entire draft class after the catch, and you're going to see that immediately within his first few games in the NFL. He might not be the greatest route runner, but he reminds me a lot of a guy like Deebo Samuel with his ability to make people miss after the catch, and I expect the Jets to use him in a pretty creative way to get the ball in his hands as much as possible. He's that talented of a player, and considering he's going to be the receiver number 3 on this team is just absolutely insane to think about. This gives Aaron Rodgers overall a great weapon group to throw to, and he's also going to be protected at the same time, and don't even get me started on what this rushing attack can potentially be. Because of the improvements of the offensive line combined with the fact that you have Breece Hall at running back, I expect this rushing attack to also be one of the best in the league, which is just going to make this offense so much better overall. You've got Breece Hall, who's still only 22 years old, and to pair with him, you also went out in the 4th round and drafted Braylon Allen, and in the 5th round drafted Isaiah Davis. I'm not sure we'll see Isaiah Davis play a ton unless we see some injuries happen, but I think Braylon Allen is the perfect running back to pair with Breece Hall, considering what he brings to the table. He is absolutely massive at 6'2", 245, and while he might not be the fastest guy ever, what he does bring is absolute power, and I expect him to come in a lot of shorter yardage situations because that's where he thrives at. Him and Breece Hall being a 1-2 punch is one of the best running back rooms in the league in my opinion, and that's just going to make this rushing attack even better, which is just absolutely insane to think about. So I genuinely do think this offense is going to be at least a top 10 offense, if not a top 5 offense, if Rodgers can stay healthy. And when you think about that offense paired with what the Jets have on defense, things start to get a little worrisome. When it comes to the defense, if the Jets would have just stayed still and not done anything, they would have still been one of the best units in football, not only because you have Robert Saleh calling the shots, but also because this defensive roster was just already so talented, but they didn't want to stay still. They went out and added even more to it to make it undeniable that they were going to be great. The first addition that I absolutely love is going out and trading for Hassan Reddick, because while a lot of people hate on this guy, I think he's going to bring a huge element to this pass rush due to the fact that he's now had back-to-back double-digit sack seasons. He's not a guy that doesn't put much production up. He is going to bring a lot of production to the table, especially when he's paired with all of these other talented guys. You, of course, still have Jermaine Johnson, who's coming off a great season, and with him going into year 3, we're probably only going to see him get better. And then, of course, you have Quentin Williams on the inside, who is an absolute freak and is probably one of, if not the very best defensive tackle in football right now, especially with Aaron Donald retiring. And then to add to that, you went out and signed Javon Kinlaw, which is going to just round out this defensive line and make it a fully complete dominant unit. They're not only going to be great against the run, but they're also going to be able to get after the passer on an extremely consistent basis, which is obviously exactly what you want. Now, speaking of the run defense though, the reason why this run defense is going to be one of the best isn't just because of the defensive line, it's also due to these linebackers behind them and CJ Mosley and Quincy Williams just being absolutely phenomenal at what they do. Both of these guys have already proven themselves to be one of the best linebacker duos in football, and when you pair that behind a defensive line like the Jets have, things are going to work out really well. And then to just bring everything together full circle, you also have one of, if not the best secondaries in the league as well, which is just unbelievable to me. Sauce Gardner is the best cornerback in football. DJ Reed is one of, if not the best cornerback 2 in football. And then you have a great nickel corner and Michael Carter as well, which means you're probably going to be pretty locked down on the back end. Not to mention the safeties behind everything are also pretty good players as well, which is just the cherry on top. And when you pair that defense with an offense that got extremely better this offseason that also has a Hall of Fame quarterback coming back from injury, things are going to start looking really good. And if I had to make my pick right now for who is going to win the Super Bowl, the Jets would be in the top 3.